Well, I just found the whole 4 presentations very full, very thought-provoking and very challenging. And also future, coming out of our present, but towards our future. So I don't have a specific question, but my mind's just going,
Okay, I'll make a fool of myself now. I mean, there's a tendency in biblical scholarship to dissociate real scholarship from church. I mean, I think Vaitusi raised this, that biblical studies need to engage with our churches. Similar from last week, we need to be practical. And not just our church, but we need to, and this has been brought up, we need to engage with the struggles of our islands, our sinking islands, the ecological part that Source had raised, and that has been brought up again. And I think one of the powerful things for me in this panel, it's not just enough to listen to the voices. It's not enough to give voice to the silenced. We need to do something. We need to listen, but we need to do something in a way that we are not trapped in this coloniality that several, I mean, all of our panels, this spirit of coloniality that continues to exist in our institutions. So maybe that's a question. We need to do something. So who's gonna take the lead and we'll follow and do something about the things that we want to be done. Is that a fair question, Eseta? Or where do you want to go with that?
It's important for us to take action on what's happening in our own Jerusalem, like in Oceania. As a church, we need to rise up and say something. As it is, I mean, COP26, the UN climate conference, it's only the secular world that's there. Where is our voice? How do we take action and take ownership, and also of what is happening, back at home? Even if we go step by step, we're doing something. We're not only just talking, but we need to do something. So the Bible is about action. It's not only about just talking, it's more than that. If Jesus took action in healing the people, healing the blind, raising the dead, what about us? What are some of the ways in which we as Oceanic people take responsibility and play a role in doing something?
Naka, does anybody want to follow that up or go a different direction? Okay, Sifa, you got a hand up.
Oceania. Thank you for the speakers for your presentation. It's a question to my brother Vaitusi, Talanoa Vaitusi. Thank you for our presentation. You mentioned in your presentation about methodology in biblical interpretation and the importance of building methodologies, and you alluded about methodology should be something that that should be evolving and changing, and the need for institution to engage with the wider church in informing the Bible readers that it is okay to change our method of Bible readings to fit the context where the church is in their location and the issues they face in the society and around the world. I realize as I engage with my church community how passionate our old people are still using old methodologies in their Bible readings. They refer the names of missionaries who brought the gospel to the Pacific. How can the institution work with local churches, encouraging them that it is okay to evolve and to change the way they interpret biblical text in order to address the real issues that we face, like we have heard from Meseta, climate change, child abuse, and all the current issues we face. How can we encourage, especially the older folk in our local churches? How can the institution encourage them that it is okay to evolve and to change in terms of using their methodology of reading the biblical text? It's a question for Waitusi.
Halo Sifa, Waitusi.
Alofa, Sifa.
Alofa.
Alofa. That's a very good question, and you are right. The answer to the question also relate to the question that was raised, and what Iseta was talking about. The question looks at what shall we do in order to make our people, in particular our elders, understand the changes or the shift of biblical interpretations that we are now dealing with. And I think where to start is the curriculum in theological colleges. And Paul Reynolds mentioned a very good idea, such as do a separate course that talks about just how we do our oceanic views to go together with the methods, all these traditional methods that we've been talking about. So for me, that's where I start with. I would develop a different course, particularly for our views and to teach our students, and our students will take that out when they graduate from our colleges. I believe that to bridge the gap, as Josefa was talking about, as our students now. And that's why I have invited some of our students who are listening and who are here with us in this forum, so that they can understand where we are coming from, and to bring them in this circle so they can be the one that will communicate what we are talking about in this circle to our communities. And that's the answer I can provide regarding the question that my friend Sifa was talking about. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Malo Waitusi. Do others want to address this same question? Because in some settings, the church feel like it's preventing change. In some cases, some activists want to change, want to call attention to. It's the church that tends to be afraid to change. And I think what I remember from your presentation, Purekorisi, is that a tradition needs to change. If it doesn't change, it's not a real tradition.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but the church, I mean, how do we do that? It's a challenge. Eh? I mean, yeah.
One of the examples I can bring in from the Bible is from the writings of the elders right towards the end of the New Testament. They are the elders of the church, and they talk about grounding the gospel
Mm.
And it's sort of like reflecting their teaching. There's no use of talking about theology if we don't practice that. And the elders here, they were supposed to be the ones to start the New Testament. Peter, James, and Jude, and all of them. But they are here towards the end, because they are here to tell us that what's the use of talking about theology if we don't ground it? And I think that there itself tells us a way of how to go about dealing with even methods in biblical studies.
Malo.
And I think Mark and Derek here can help us with more answers.
Okay, Derek has got his hands up. Derek.
Kia ora, Malo. Well,
kia ora.
thank you very much, everybody. It's been very stimulating. I'd like to first of all commend the last 2 points that Vaitusi made about people learning Greek and Hebrew. Tie that with the use of languages in one's own language, because I have a suspicion, and you can correct me, those of you who have Greek and Hebrew and then already can reflect on this, but one of the advantages, I think, if people had Greek and Hebrew, or there were scholars who were very, who had a good grasp of their own language, indigenous language, but also Greek and Hebrew, is that they could move then directly from the Greek or the Hebrew into their own language, as it were, and their own culture. So there wouldn't be this sort of transversing through another culture to the culture that you're in. One example of that is there's a very important word in John's Gospel, doxa, glory, and in the Maori translation, that has been transliterated, kororia. Is there a natural language word which might be used? I mean, I've read around that, and I'm very conscious that I was depending on scholars who knew the culture and the language, people like Maori Marsden and others. And I wrote on that, and I wondered about a word mana. Doxa is a very big word, and so is mana. Rangi Nicholson very helpfully helped me to bring in and pointed out the connection with tapu as well. But, I would love to see or know of Maori natural language speakers. And I know that there's a difficulty that many of the younger generation perhaps have lost their language, and so they're having to relearn it, as it were. But if they could, if you had the Maori Marsdens of the modern age, and I mean, there are those around. I mean, Don Tamaheri has studied Hebrew. Tamsin Kariopa, I think, is pretty proficient in Greek. But, they're busy, and I don't know what Tamsin's doing at the moment. I know she's working on a PhD, but, they've got busy lives, particularly Don and his position. I echo what Te Aroha said, where are the Maori biblical scholars who really could help, with the language? The other thing I'd like to just raise, forgive me going on, but it's somewhat from last week. I had a question that I didn't get to, and it was, if we become more interdisciplinary, will we also become more able to communicate at the popular, non-academic level? And that relates to some of the talk tonight. I mean, also we could add in, would we be more able to communicate at the ecclesiological, the church pew level? That's my contribution.
Thank you, Derek. We have two people who might be able to answer the question on mana. Te Aroha or Paul, or at least two, sorry. And this the second one is quite powerful. What does it mean to be interdisciplinary? Because we tend to think discipline in terms of an academic discipline rather than thinking, our people who haven't done biblical studies, but that's a discipline as well. Are there Gloria, there Teroha or Paul with Toxa?
No, I was just going to say I'm not a te reo expert at all, or a biblical expert at all. So those two things push me out. But the other thing around the interdisciplinary, I think, is there's room for interdisciplinary connection with theology and other disciplines, wider disciplines. And why I was raising around trauma theology is there is room there, to cross disciplines, looking at our experience of trauma as Indigenous or Oceanic people, as well as relating it to the Bible, because the Bible's full of trauma, but also linking it to our current context, because I can speak for Māori. The impacts of colonization are still felt. The high stats around imprisonment, around unwellness, they didn't come from nowhere. There's a whakapapa to that. And that relates, and many scholars have spoken around the connection to colonization and the impacts of that. And also our ongoing, the ongoing racism that is happening within Aotearoa and within New Zealand and within the world. This impacts, I think, how we, as a people of faith, how we interact with the world, but also how we could interact with the world, and in particular about social justice issues, as Iseta has spoken about, that we are, as was Christ, was champion to those who were poor, who were downtrodden, and so on, and who were oppressed. So I think there's room actually to work across. So theology isn't just a theological study. Actually, it crosses many disciplines, and including even around, if we talk about well-being of our people, of all peoples, in many different government departments. And Treasury, for example, has a framework around well-being, and part of that framework around well-being is around spirituality, is around connection to, they don't say God because that's too risky for a government department, but it's around faith and it's around spirituality. So basically that, I think there's much room to be interdisciplinary. But sorry, I can't answer the other one. The first one, Derek. Kia ora.
Thanks, Paul. Teroha, do you want to jump on that or save it for another time on Toxa and
Yeah,
mana?
I think I'd like to have a little bit more kōrero with Derek about that kupu. Maybe, I don't know. I have some thoughts about whether mana is what you're looking for. I don't know enough about the Greek or Hebrew word. I know about the Māori words, but yeah, maybe we can have another kōrero outside of this forum. That's interesting. I do know that there are a lot of Māori who are learning Hebrew or have been learning Hebrew and find it easier to use the English translation of the Hebrew Bible. We use it sometimes in our training for ministry within the Methodist Māori context. So we use the English translations of the Hebrew Bible because they tell a similar story to how we speak in our own language. I'm not sure if that's even helpful to you, but maybe we can have another kōrero. You can school me on Doxa and I can school you on mana.
On mana. There you go. Have a coffee and work it out. That will be, or wine or whatever the appropriate beverage is. Mark. You have to, sorry, Mark, you have to unmute. Oh, there you go.
Marlo. Thank you for the provocations tonight to conversation. And if I can just pick up on that last conversation about language and a discussion about how words might fit together from different languages, from the Pacific and from the Bible. It strikes me that you are inevitably requiring some disciplinary knowledge on the Oceanic side, on the biblical side. You can't make the disciplines go away. You have to know, where the language comes from, the whakapapa for each context and idea, and how they might or might not be translatable, or how they could be translated. And that strikes me as a metaphor for some of the big issues that have been raised, like, let's say, climate change, and whether concern about climate change is to be properly grounded or not. So if you go down Sydney Road, where my church is, all the churches will have climate change type signs. So it's very clear all the churches are concerned about climate change, but it's also very clear that they are regarded as not grounded, idealistic, head in the clouds. And if you go to the country, say northeast Victoria, you'll find the communities who are completely dependent on coal for their livelihood. North Queensland the same. So they say, oh, these dreamers, they want immediate change, but they're going to kill all our communities. They're just going to make us unemployed and so forth. So get grounded. And it strikes me the same thing was said in the newspaper yesterday about India and China's dependence on purchasing coal over the next few years, because they don't have the infrastructure. So they're saying to be grounded means making use of coal. Whereas, of course, in Tuvalu, to be grounded means stop using coal. And how do you make these arguments? Well, it requires some discipline, right? You need climatologists, you need economists, people who are trained to make the argument that actually it's short-term thinking to say you can't divest from coal, that it actually makes better economic sense to divest from coal, as long as you work out how those people are going to be employed and so forth. So I guess, I just wanted to ask whether there's a way of thinking about translation and discipline as belonging not just to this relationship between biblical studies and church, but between theology and the world. Whenever we ask a big question like domestic violence or climate change or the return of Aboriginal land, you suddenly need people with all sorts of expertise in order to translate. I worked in native title. You need lawyers to translate in the court in order to win cases. And these lawyers have got disciplinary knowledge that I don't have. But the interesting thing about them is that they take instructions from their Indigenous clients. So I like that idea that if you have an Indigenous direction to your questions, you can order then the disciplines and the expertise in order to get the right mix to get the translation happening and make it effective, and not just be dismissed as a dreamer one way or the other. Anyway, that's a kind of set of observations and questions all at once, and I think it's probably related to all the speakers tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. So we have still a lot of work to do, even with like, for example, the issue of West Papua that Ezeta brought up. It's not just me being a Tongan feeling guilty for not learning about West Papua, but I need to deal with lawyers, and there are other conversations that need to be done. And I mean, there's the element that I don't want to lose sight of yet, is the thing about art that Paul had brought, and to an extent the flex that Te Aroha had spoke about, and I like the way that I think Paul presented it as sacred. The church is full of sacred stories, and so the sacred is not just what we read in Matthew or Mark, but in the what we call carvings and other things. So, but we need, as Mark has reminded us, we need the conversation. We need to listen beyond. Let me try that again. We need to first listen to one another within us, as Paul had raised, but we also need to listen beyond where we are. And I looks like there's a lot more work that need to be done here. So our time is drawing to a close. So I want to give, okay, Alai Moana, we'll take a short comment or question, and then we'll give a chance to members of our panel to close us. Alai Moana. You have to unmute, Alai Moana. Yeah.
Talo Falava, and greetings to the panelists and all the ordained ministers that's on tonight. First of all, I would like to say Tulu, and I know that I don't really have the right to speak on this panel because I'm just a student of Ma'alua. So I would like to thank you to our Reverend Dr. Vaitusino Foinga, our principal, for the opportunity to invite us to sit in and listen to all the views and the ideas, especially the discussions from all the members of the panel. You know, to be honest, it's great. Was quite interesting, and very appreciate to listen to all these presentations and the seminars that gives us the idea, and especially gives the knowledge of you know, where we're at and what we've been discussed in this panel. But I also would like to you know, to say a little bit on you know, about Paul Reynolds you know, presentation in regards to the arts of the stories of the arts, the way that's done. You know, to I quite like and interested to listening to, because it actually gives, you know, it gives us something about, you know, the culture, you know, in this story, because as Reynolds was saying, you know, the arts that speaks, you know, the stories of faith that relates and connects to the creation. You know, as a student's point of view, you know, like think about the history and before the coming of the ministries in our homeland, and I'm sure, and what we learned that you know, we all, you know, each culture and you know, had our own beliefs and what we, you know, we believe into, you know, as God before we, you know, we had the missionaries, and I'm sure that relates to, you know, to the history, and that's where that idea of you know, of the carvings and the arts was, you know, coming from. And it's quite good and very interested to me, because, you know, nowadays that we have the changes and the fast knowledge, you know, that we learn the Bible and things like that. But this piece of art and piece of work that probably relates from the beginning of our indigenous you know, native you know, elders and our parents, that still, you know, bring the memories from the beginning of the history of the church to nowadays, because, you know, generations goes on, and it seems like, you know, the olden, you know, beliefs and what we learned from the olden days, that's sort of faded away because of the changes of what we've learned nowadays. But at least this piece of work can still, you know, remind these new generations about, you know, what was, you know, what we believe in those days, because, you know, that's what I'm thinking of, you know, like it's quite good that they still have those as a memory, you know, where the elders was starting to, because, you know, it actually relates, you know, not only to the creation, but it tells the story, you know, from the start. Yeah, so it was quite interesting for me to say that. And also with the Hebrew and the Greek language, you know, to me personally, that you know, as was said, is quite important to, you know, for the studies of the biblical, you know, studies, because to me, you know, this is the uniqueness of what we learned, you know, in terms of trying to interpreting the, you know, the Bible and the messages and stuff like that, you know, in the Bible, because not always, especially you know, the other preachers, that, you know, that they don't learn the, you know, the Hebrew and the Greek language, you know, they don't understand really the meaning of some words that we, you know, when we learn about the Greek with these two languages, that gives us a different meaning and the interpretation of the Bible. So, you know, to me, you know, that's the importance, and you know, of these two languages. It's, you know, so that we can look on the other side, or the deeper meaning of what it actually says. Because even though that the Bible was translated, you know, like for instance, you know, Samoan or the English Bible or Tokelauan Bible, you know, but if we really need to look into what it actually says, you know, in the Hebrew language, they have a different meaning, and so that's, you can, you know, that's how important, you know, those you know, to learn those languages to me. So that was just my own point of view, you know, just to share. Thank you very much, Chione, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, Faftai Alaimona. We'll wind things up. We'll give a chance to members of our panel. Maybe we'll start with Paul, and then we'll move backwards. Paul first. Thank you.
Kia ora, Sione. Kia ora, Alaimona. Just a quick thing is that I think Pacifica peoples, indigenous peoples, they knew God before Christianity. So faith was already here. So you're right. So those stories are imbued and woven into our artwork and our dance and our hymns and our songs, all of those things. So we knew God before Christianity came. And then Christianity was easy then, I think, for our own people to actually respond to, because they knew God. So and took it on. And our traditions, our old people are our kaumātua, our kuia, our pakeke. They're important storytellers, and I think they're important storytellers about our faith, but also about how we live well as a people. So they are a really important repository of information and knowledge around our faith. And I just want to say, I want to thank Sione for this opportunity to share in the Talanoa. I have really enjoyed the two previous Talanoa and this Talanoa, and being a part of it. I feel very honoured. And thank you for the powerful conversations that have happened. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Paul. Iseta, do you want to offer some further thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say, binakabakalevu for inviting me to be part of this this very important forum and platform. As a person of Oceanic origin, I think it's important for us to keep talking, to keep having these conversations. But in the end, I guess we need to do something to move us forward from where we are. Malo Aupito, Sione, and for everyone who has been part of this these very important conversations in Talanoa that we've had in the last 2 Sundays. And like Paul, I have enjoyed all of the conversations from the first one till this last one. And thank you very much for all those who have contributed. I've enjoyed the Talanoa.
Vinaka Eseta. I see Petaya, but we'll move. Well, let's finish with the panels. Te Aroha and then Waitusi. Te Aroha, please.
Kia ora, I was just thinking as everyone's been talking about Eseta's question, what are we going to do? And I was thinking about what we do in solidarity. And, you know, we have this advocacy through prophetic voice. We have this platform that we can use for social justice. And I'm just wondering about how we can kind of submerge ourselves in solidarity with these smaller islands that are directly impacted, and by those communities like Eseta was talking about in terms of West Papua. It's not enough to write the statements and to perhaps advocate. Maybe there's something more that can be done to move and shift, particularly forums like OBSA and other ecumenical conferences in this kōrero. And just as I was thinking about your question, Derek, in terms of doxa, I don't know what this word means. Glory. If glory means splendor, then you can use the term ahure or ātanga. But if it means more like something that comes to life or a passion or an energy, then you can use the word wana. So there's more to the translation, I guess, than just using those transliterations that we were given. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, Te Aroha. I mean, this is translation in it's a process. So I'm sure there might be another term that will come up later. Waitusi, your final thoughts.
Thank you, Johnny. I think from tonight, I have learned that we need more indigenous directions to our many questions. And also, we still have more to do. And as Mark said, we need to continue listening to others and beyond. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Johnny, for putting all these sessions, the last 3 sessions together. And it is great to see Mark and Derek and Kathleen in this forum tonight. And my friend Fatilua coming back from PTC to Samoa. And great to see Siosifa and all the friends, and also to all my students and all the ladies. Thank you for this session.
Yeah, hello. Neti, you have the final word.
Malo, Johnny, I apologize for jumping in, and I wasn't meant to be the one to say the final words tonight. I just wanted to make a comment because I was listening to the contributions tonight from some of our speakers and also the forum. And there's a book that I'm reading, and it's called Whispers and Vanities. And I know, Johnny, you contributed to that book as well, you know, and many others. But I think what Awhionga Tupua Tamasese Efi is trying to make a point here is that there is room and there's space for us as Christians, Samoans, and all Oceania, you know, Christians and religions, you know, to always consider that what the missionaries brought, you know, we are going with that. but there should be also room for us to actually let's hear our own stories. What is that saying to us? And it's called Whispers and Vanities, Samoa Indigenous Knowledge and Religion. So I'm just saying that this book might also help us understand some of these concepts that we're talking about. What Paul was saying. I've yet to see a church building that Samoans built with elements of the Samoan culture in there, which tells our own story. Yet we have stained glass, we have all of the other culture stuff that's in those churches, but we don't have any cultural our own in there that speaks to us. This is our story. This is how we understand God, and we'd like to tell it the way in how we built those churches. Just some thoughts, and I'm again apologizing to everyone for holding you up a bit further. So, but have a good night.
Oh, malo Neti. That's a good challenge to end our OBSA 2021. Maybe time to break the stained glasses and put up the Samoan art in the churches and in Fiji as well, and in Tonga, of course. We have the stained glasses in Tonga. So, but it's not as fascinating as the one in Samoa. I wanna thank the members of the panel, Vaitusi, Te Aroha, and Eseta and Paul, but also for the other two panels. Thank you for participating in OBSA 2021. There's a lot of work that we need to do. I'll come back. I think there has been some suggestion for follow-up for this OBSA 2021. I'll follow up with the panels, and if others are interested in participating in the follow-up, please let me know. Everyone will get that same email. You may not believe it, but I'm a Christian, and I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas. And I hope that the new year will be fulfilling, whonu, as we say in Tongan, whonu I monu ia, filled with manuia, with cheers, with blessings, and that's our benediction. May that blessing, may that manuia, that mana, that doxa, that glory, or however you want to translate it, may be with you and yours and your families and your communities. And we will we'll meet up another time, and hopefully Tarawa will not drown before we meet again. So Faftai lava, manuia lepo to everyone. So we'll see you the next time.